All right, good evening. It is 6 p.m. on September the 29th, and I will call this special called City Council meeting to order. And first item we will take up is the adoption of the agenda. If there are no changes, do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Have a motion to adopt the agenda, a second?
Second.
And a second, all in favor? Okay, that's unanimous. At this time, we will open up the floor for public comments. We will do this both at the beginning of this meeting, and we will do it during a public hearing on the adoption of the budget. So if you are here to speak generally on public comments, I ask for you to come forward now. Any takers? So I have two people on my list. I assume those two people would like to speak during the public hearing? Okay. All right, well then, seeing no takers for public comments, I will close the public comments portion of the meeting, and we will move right into our work, which is going to be item A, community development. Ron Johnson. 55 and 63 Goldworth Road, which is Avamore, extension on rezoning conditions. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. Good evening. This is a request for a extension on Avamore's conditions that were placed on the property in August and September of 2019. If you remember, at that time there was about about 6 conditions that they needed to get into us, some certain plans and phasing plans, economic analysis, things of that nature that needed to be submitted within 1 year of the adoption of that rezoning. So we have still a few items that are outstanding. The preliminary plat application is outstanding. The economic analysis is outstanding, homeowners association covenants, and the final development plan, in addition to a detailed plan on the proposed movement of the water tower.
Okay, tonight what you were doing, though, is you are just asking for, and staff is recommending, an extension for that that was approved a year ago. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
All right, council, does anyone have any questions?
Are we seeing any activity? Thank you, Shirley. Any activity on that? It's not like they've done nothing for a year and are now asking for an extension. They're actually getting stuff done. It's
Yeah.
just they need more time.
That's correct. The coronavirus pandemic really struck everyone in the industry, as you can imagine. So they just need a little more time.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? If there are no additional questions, I would entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve a 1-year extension of the deadline for Westchester Real Estate Investment LLC to fulfill the requirements of the aforementioned rezoning conditions as a part of application RA 06-18, as a part of application RA 0618 for 55 and 63 Goldworth Road.
That's going to be a typo there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
a small little
duplicate.
typo there.
All right, so I have a motion to approve a 1-year extension of the deadline for Winchester Real Estate Investment LLC. I just wanted to correct the name.
Yes.
Have a second from Ms. Marchman. Is there any additional discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor? That is unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Okay, that will conclude that community development portion of our meeting. We will now move into tab B, which is finance. Sarah Andrews, CFO. We're going to hold a public hearing for the 2021 budget. So I forgot what we talked about. Which one you want to do? I forgot. You tell me.
I think we said public hearing, but if you want me to present first, that might make more sense.
Okay, let me let you go ahead and present the budget for us,
Okay.
and then I will take public comments, and then we'll see if we can answer any of those if we need to. All right,
Okay.
go ahead.
All right. Okay, this is for our 2021 operating and capital budget adoption. Working. Yeah. Do we need more batteries?
Let me ask you to turn off your microphone if you have it on right now, so that we're not getting any interruption while she's waiting on the remote.
How many minutes?
She wishes.
It's off now. It's off now.
I'm not picking it up when I'm talking to you.
All right. The light's on, so maybe we're good. Okay, so let's talk about the overview. So our total proposed 2021 budget is $35 million. This is a 3% decrease from our 2020 budget. So that pie shows you where those funds are going. The biggest piece of the pie is our general fund. So 45% of that $35 million is our general fund. And another large piece of the pie, about a quarter of the pie, is our water and sewer fund, which is 26%. And then all of our other smaller funds make up about a fourth of the pie. So again, 3% decrease from last year with a $35 million total budget. Just some high-level notes on the revenue side. This budget does include a 6.25 millage rate that was adopted in August. With the coronavirus situation, we were a little bit conservative in our recreation revenue estimate, so we've only included about 50% of recreation revenue compared to the prior year, and about 40% of Pine Mountain revenue compared to 2020. And this budget includes no rate increases for water, sewer, or sanitation. A couple high-level notes on the expenditures. We were able to leave all of our employees. There's no layoffs or furloughs in this budget, and with that, no added unemployment insurance. We have continued improvements to salaries for hiring and retention, and we did lose the inmate crews, again, due to Corona, so we have temporary employees to replace those lost crews because that's quite a few people to help in certain departments. This budget includes $425,000 in projects for building and grounds, Butterballs renovation for $500,000, and Punkintown Road engineering for $100,000. This is my PSA for governmental accounting. Separate buckets. So in governmental accounting, sources of funds have to be kept separate based on types of funds and what they'll be used for. So I've given a couple examples here, but we have a bucket which we call general fund, which is mostly funded by taxes. So this is where the property tax, sales tax, insurance premium tax, occupational tax, it's funded by taxes for our governmental expenses. So I have a separate bucket that the revenue comes in for taxes and pays out for governmental activities. So that's police, recreation, streets. Moving to our second bucket, we have water and sewer fees. That's coming into the bucket for water and sewer, paid out for water and sewer expenditures. So again, that's a source of revenue, pays for a type of expense. And lastly, other funds have to be kept separate. SPLOST funds can only be used for certain things. Hotel funds, seized funds, like with the police department, those pay for specific things. So governmental accounting, we have to budget for them separately. All right, now we're going to talk about just a couple items within the budget, the biggest one being personnel. So like I said, the total budget is $35 million. Of that, almost $12 million is personnel. So this year it's $11.8 million in the budget you're looking at. Prior year was $11.3 million, so that's a 4% increase. You can see on the pie, almost, 77% is general fund employees. So, some of our biggest departments, Public Works, Police Department, they all fall into the general fund. Again, separate bucket from water and sewer and sanitation, etc. We did add 3 positions, 2 transferred positions and 2 upgraded positions. The 3 added positions are as follows. We have a maintenance tech added to the building and fleet department, and a part-time building inspector added to the community development department. Those two are in the general fund. You see the total there, 77,000. And then a crew leader for water and sewer collection, distribution and collection department. We have 2 transfers. So the last couple years we have budgeted for park rangers that were never filled. We are proposing to transfer those into program assistants, still within the recreation department, within similar duties of what was hoped of the park rangers, but kind of retitling them to a better position. So the net change is actually savings of almost 5,000. And lastly, we have 2 upgrades. The first one is an IT technician. So the pay we had budgeted in 2020 is just too low. Proposing to increase the pay on that one. It'd still be part-time. And the last one is a library assistant. They are currently part-time. And the proposal was to move them to full-time. The total on that was 29,000. So those 2 are in the general fund. Okay, also included in this budget are a couple pay increases. The first one is phase 3 of the salary study that was started in the 2019 budget. In 2018, we had a salary study performed. I think we paid a decent sum of money for that to be done by a third party. They came in and studied all of our positions, they looked at the job descriptions, got them up to where they needed to be, and then compared us to local governments or people that we compete with for hiring and retention. So this is phase 3, is $83,000 to fix the pay structure, and then also $98,000 for a 1.5% COLA, keeping the pay structure current. So we don't want to lose ground on that salary study that we implemented. Okay, moving on to self-funded insurance. In October of 2017, the city went self-funded. So instead of sending a big check to a fully insured insurance company every month, we actually deposit that money in our own bank account and only pay out actual expenses. So in this budget, we're looking at $1.95 million in expense for this insurance plan. Of that, the 2 brown boxes show what that's made up of. $549,000 of that is administrative. So we do pay a third party to handle the payments, and that's the broker and some other administrative things. 1.4 million is how much we have budgeted for claims, estimated claims. But if you look at that green box, what the actuaries came back and said to us, our maximum liability could be 1.56 million. Well, we've had such a good run over the last couple of years that we only budgeted 90% of that. So the difference between the maximum and what we actually budgeted is savings. That's, so it's $160,000 that we didn't have to budget on insurance. And also with self-funded insurance, we have a end of year incentive pay of $53,000, which is being paid out of these self-funded insurance savings. As of now, we have $915,000 in our separate self-funded bank account. So we're proposing that $53,000 come out of that bank account. Capital, we have a very long list of capital this year. I'm not going to get into all of that, but we have $8.9 million in projects that are shown in this budget. This slide just shows you how those things are being funded. So of the $8.9 million, $3.5 million is being proposed to be paid for by a GFA loan. And then on the other side of the donut is SPLOST. So we have 2 active SPLOSTs, Carroll SPLOST and Douglas SPLOST, the combination of them paying for $2.4 million. Water and Sewer Fund paying for $1.6 million, and General Fund paying for $1 million. Any questions?
Okay, hang on just a second. So because this is a public hearing, I want to have you pause right there, and then I'm going to let public come up, any members of the public who would like to speak, and then we will pick back up after that and hopefully address any questions or concerns. So at this time, I will open the floor up for public comments for the public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to speak? If you would like to speak, please come forward. Please state your name and address for the record, and we will give you 3 minutes. This very talented city clerk will be the timekeeper.
Go.
Sure, go.
I'm Margaret Taylor, but I go by Peg Taylor. 2120 Osprey Cove, and that's here in Villarica. So I happened to notice a post from Leslie about some of the expenses that are in the budget. And so as I was speaking with some of my neighbors and friends, I also was in agreement about the $53,000 on the Christmas bonus. So I've worked for private industry for like 40 plus years, and I must say that that's a very generous bonus. We were lucky to get a turkey gift certificate or honey baked ham gift certificate, $25, and that was pretty much standard, whether it was retail or manufacturing. So I'm not in agreement with that type of bonus. And then the other one that I was made aware of, as far as the education being reimbursed for people to get a college degree. I'm not sure how that works in the city, but that's one thing that I think that should be on the person's own dime. I don't think it should be the taxpayers paying for somebody to get a general business degree or whatever degree they want. I think training is important for people for their job-specific type training, but not just to get a general business degree or liberal arts or whatever. I think taxpayers should pay for their own degrees. That's all.
Okay. I had a suggestion from a constituent who suggested that maybe during this time I would have some comment, and while it's generally the custom here that we don't, I'm going to at least try to address those two things. The end-of-year incentive will be taken up tonight, and so we heard your comments, and we'll see how that goes. I do want to clarify on the tuition. That is part of the personnel policy. That will not be taken up as part of the budget process tonight. However, sometime later in the year, we will take up the personnel policy. It's already part of the policy and has been for some 3 years. There are some handcuff requirements in there, which means, you have to commit to the city, and there are limitations for how that's paid out and under what circumstances. So while I'm not going to get into all the details, because frankly, I don't know them off the top of my head, I did want you to at least felt like we were responding to you, okay?
I appreciate it.
Thank you, Peg. Okay, does anybody else wish to speak during the public hearing for the budget? Okay, seeing no more takers, I will close the public hearing, and I will call Miss Sarah Andrews back up, and I will ask council if they have any questions for, I keep wanting to say your other last name, and I apologize. That's what causes me to pause for Miss Andrews.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody?
I have a couple. On page 12 of the overview that you gave us with the IT technician, the library assistant, my only question on that, I know that we're putting in here what is the increase. Now, we never filled the IT technician position this year, right? But what I'd like to know is what is the total overall? This is going to be the increase over what was budgeted for a position we didn't have. And for the library assistant, that's an upgrade. So what is the cost of those positions totally? Not the two together, but the IT technician, what's the full salary, and what is the full salary of the library assistant?
Okay. If you want to give me a second, I can pull it up.
Does anyone else have any general questions or comments? We may be able to get the city manager to weigh in if we need to. He looks excited about it. Anybody? All right, let's give her a minute to take a look at that.
You make your eyes dance a little bit.
Okay, while she's looking that up, I'm going to talk a little bit about the budget process this year, since we've got a little bit of time here. So one of the reasons why we are doing these summaries, and the reason you got the summary is because we've already had a number of meetings where we've had workshops and where we've had different meetings. This process actually began back in June when the CFO, which is Sarah, began to meet with staff to prepare up the worksheets for this coming budget. Then in July, the departments submitted their request and met with the CFO and the city manager, and then they began to have meetings with the mayor, the city manager, and the CFO on a regular basis as we began to move through that budget process. Then in August, we received the property tax information from the counties, and then on August the 13th, we held a millage rate public hearing. And then on August 18th and 19th, we did a millage and a draft budget workshop. That was a 2-day meeting. And then on August the 25th, we held the millage rate public hearings and then adopted millage rate. On August 31st, we had a initial fully proposed printed budget that we made available to all the council members and online. And then on September the 8th, there was a budget presentation and a public hearing. And then on September the 10th, there was a budget public hearing and a workshop. And now here we are, September 29th, we had a public hearing, and we are going to try to make this thing get adopted tonight. My point is that this has been a long process, a 4-month process for a 12-month budget. I think sometimes at the last minute, people think, oh, this thing just popped up. I had no idea what was going on. So I just wanted to give you a timeline of what we've been doing and how we got here today. Do you have your numbers,
I do.
Sarah? All right, I'll go ahead and let you do that.
Okay. So the total on the IT tech person is $18,350. That's total. So if you subtract out the $7,900 that we're proposing to increase it, then that person was like roughly $11,000 budgeted. And then the library assistant, again, that is a current employee that is part-time. When we increase it to full-time and add benefits and things, the total fully loaded cost is $43,920. So what we're adding is $29,000.
Okay, I'm familiar with it. Give me that total number again on the IT. I didn't have that.
$18,350.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you. Any other questions for Sarah? Okay. Let me get back to my agenda here for a minute.
Okay, one
Yes, sir.
question. On the library upgrade, the 29,211, is that the current salary and it goes up to 43,000? What?
No, the total. If you
Okay.
subtract the 29, that's what they are making now. The 29 includes the increase in hours, so you're doubling the hours, and then we have to estimate benefits. So it's an estimated insurance cost plus taxes, estimated retirement, workers' comp, all the additional expense that goes into hiring an employee.
On the COLA, so that we don't use the term, so we don't fall behind, would we say that it's pretty standard for, I mean, I know teachers may not be getting this, but say government or whatever, are you saying that in order to stay current, once we've introduced, the salary increases and gotten everybody up to grade and pay parity, you're saying that we would fall behind if we didn't always do the COLA? Would that be every year? Is that standard expected in other government entities?
Well, the company that did the salary study for us, they said you could implement this the first year, you'd still need to do a salary study in 3 to 5 years. So I think the expectation is, yes, there's going to have to be some adjustment over the years so that it doesn't fall to where, I mean, we were $700,000. That was the original presentation to us.
Yeah.
So, yes, I would think.
We had a lot of catching up to do initially.
Yeah.
And frankly, in these first 2 phases, we've done a lot. I mean, we have come a long way. And
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure we will have some discussion about that. Okay, any other questions for Sarah before we get to the adoption piece? Okay, so Sarah, thank you. Just hang out there for a minute. So this is how I would like to move forward. And as I stated, when I laid out that whole list of the calendar and how we had done this, I did that because I wanted everyone to be reminded and be aware that we've been through this whole process numerous times. We've had many hours of detailed discussion about it, and of course, we've had a lot of public input, which is what brings us to here today. I'm going to, in just a few minutes, the way I would like to do this, and I was talking with a council member earlier today, and I'm reminded that I've been on the council and then now as mayor for 3 years, and in no year was the budget handled the same way. And I believe that person said that they had been on the council for nearly 8 years and that it had not been handled the same 2 years. So tonight, the way I'm going to do it, in a few minutes, I'm going to open this up and I'm going to allow anyone who seeks recognition to make an amendment, and I would like them to propose that as a motion. We will then see if you get a second, and if you do, we'll discuss it, and then we'll take a vote. At that point, if it passes, we will amend the budget that we will finally vote on at the end. I want to address this without trying to influence what the council may do. The end-of-year incentive comes up every year. It's come up every year since I've been on the council and even before, and I have a history that I went back to take a look at. And in every year, there has been an end-of-year incentive, except last year. Last year, it came up last minute, which I did not agree with, and it really didn't have the time to be vetted. And then at the council meeting, I pulled the records. One of these members sitting here today made a motion to remove it from the agenda, and it was seconded by another member sitting here today, and then no incentive was done last year. This year is different. We're putting it in the budget. We're not waiting till the end of the year to do it, and we're also taking it out of the savings from the self-funded insurance plan. What I'm going to say tonight, without saying too much on what you guys do, the council will make a motion maybe and do something about it or not. But going forward, when we review that personnel policy that one of our speakers spoke about tonight, or at least brought up, I'm going to ask that this become part of the personnel policy going forward so that this doesn't come up every year, but I want it tied to a percentage of the net savings out of the self-funded insurance plan so that employees have an opportunity to influence the savings through how they conduct their health care, and then we will use a formula from those savings to give back a maximum amount. There won't be a minimum, but there will be a maximum. So that does nothing for us tonight, except that you know that we're going to change how we look at this going forward when we get to the personnel policy. But for tonight, I will leave it to you all to discuss if you want to make any kinds of changes. With that being said, I will ask if any council members seek to be recognized for a motion to amend. Mr. Young.
I make a motion to amend the 2021 proposed budget that was printed on August 31st, 2020, with the following changes. Remove the library position upgrade in the amount of $29,523. Remove travel for Pine Mountain in the amount of $3,680. Remove travel and training for HR in the amount of $13,100. Remove travel and training for Main Street in the amount of $6,950. And add the sum of those changes, which is $53,253, to the contingency fund. Contingency fund expenditures will need to come before the council for approval at the discretion of the city manager.
Okay, that is a long motion. Do I have did you get all that?
Yes.
Okay, do I have a second?
I
Second.
second that.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Let's open that up for discussion if anyone wants to discuss those items. Okay, if there is no discussion,
Let me ask first now,
Yes, ma'am.
what you got on there, just take all of that off, or a
To move
part of
it, to move it out of those funds and put it into council contingency funds, so that if we want to spend it later, to move those library position upgrade, travel for Pine Mountain, travel and training for HR, travel and training for Main Street, out of the funds that they're in and into the council contingency fund, so that if at some point in the future, the city manager thinks that those are appropriate expenditures, he brings them back to the council.
Part of the thinking on that was with COVID, some of these things are associated with attracting tourism and that sort of thing. And that if nobody's doing those type of trips and they're not doing group travel, that it wouldn't make sense to spend that. I think part of the thinking also on the library was that the library still is not fully operational. So they're reduced in the functions that they're doing and everything. And so it's hard to say, hey, let's raise taxes, we've raised taxes, but we're going to go ahead and add to a department that is, at this point, is not even fully operational. And that we could vet that further as we see what happens with the virus and that sort of thing.
That's right. Okay, is there any other discussion? All right, well then yes, sir.
We're using the word or phrase contingency fund. This is not a fund, right? This is a line item in the budget. It's just a contingency account, okay? Right? Same thing that we had last year. It's in the governing body, you know, organizationally in the chart. So this isn't like a separate bank account or separate fund accounting and buckets and all that stuff. This is just a line item.
Okay, so we just call it contingency and leave
Or
the word.
contingency account, yeah.
All right, well,
I like
I'll
account. That's a
reread
good
that
word.
before we take a vote. All right, yes, ma'am.
Question for Mr. Young. So you're saying you put that in there and, I mean, take that out, put it in wherever, and then if down the line they decide that they need it, then the city manager has the authority to say, okay.
No, the city manager, if the city manager believes that expenditure of those funds is required, he would come back and present that to the city council for approval.
But the money would already be in the
okay,
contingency
okay.
so that we wouldn't have
It
to
would still be in the
do a
budget.
budget amendment.
Okay, all right.
Okay,
You know, if COVID disappears after Election Day.
something could change, sure. Oh, no, you did not.
Now wait.
Okay, all right, is there any other discussion? All right, if not, let me read the motion back. No, I don't want to read the whole thing. Just know that the contingency is contingency and not fund, and that you're responsible for making that, and Mr. Mecklin, if he were sitting here, he'd say that's a housekeeping change and you can do that. So, all right, that being the case, I have a motion. Do I have a second? I had a second from Mr. Carter.
Yeah.
All right, so let me call the question. All in favor? Okay, so that amendment will be made. Is anybody seek recognition to make an additional amendment as a motion?
I do.
Ms. McPherson,
I'd like to make a motion that we take the Christmas pay of $53,000 and do something more reasonable, like a gift card. And have our annual, you know, Christmas luncheon or whatever it is that we do at that time.
could I get you to be a little more specific on what we do, though? Because I'm gonna need to, if that passes, I need them to have direction. Gift card? How much?
50.
I don't read sign language. So, would you please just make that motion again?
Make a motion that we remove the $53,000 being paid out of the self-funded insurance savings and instead replace it with a $50 gift card for the employees.
Okay, I have a motion from Ms. McPherson. Do I have a second? Okay, I do not have a second, therefore that motion will die. I will recognize anyone else who wishes to make a motion for an amendment to the budget.
I have one other, but I'm not sure that it would be an amendment, so let's discuss this just for a second. Because you mentioned that the tuition pay is related to policy, but the tuition that's paid cannot be done unless it's in the budget we're passing right now. So the
But-
funding for
so-
it has to be in the current budget. So how does that play in with
So-
address it now or address it when the handbook comes up?
So essentially what has happened, and we've looked at this, is that the personnel policy is the policy. We are committed to everything in the policy already, so we would have to fund it. In other words, we're not going to just strip it out of the budget because we've already committed to that in the personnel policy, so that would not be an appropriate discussion for the budget. It would, however, be germane to a discussion about the personnel policy.
So that would be something that we would put on the agenda. Usually we review the policy
end of the year.
handbook
We're working on it.
Okay,
every year.
Let me continue on here. Does anybody want to make any additional motions for amending the 2021 budget? Okay, hearing no additional amendments and motions, I would entertain a motion to adopt the budget.
I move to adopt, as amended tonight, the 2021 proposed operating and capital budget printed on August 31st, 2020.
I have a motion to adopt as amended tonight the 2021 proposed operating and capital budget as printed on August 31, 2020. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, I will call the question. All in favor? That is unanimous. We have adopted the 2021 budget. Ms. Sarah, if you'll make those changes, and please send out a copy
Okay,
of the amended budget to the council.
will do.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank y'all.
We will now move on to the last item, which Ms. Sarah brought to me recently, and maybe has discussed it with everybody, I don't know. B3, pay off 2014 GFA loan. Go ahead.
Yes, will you pull that up? So back in 2014, the city took on a small GFA loan for some water sewer projects. And the balance on that is roughly $101,000. They're still pulling it. So the end of our fiscal year is tomorrow. So Tom and I were discussing the possibility of just paying that $101,000 off and be done with it and not carry it into the next budget. And so I would like to ask the council to approve this. It's $101,268.07. This would be an early payoff. When I talked to GFA, they said there's no penalty. The original balance was $425,000. The interest is 3%, so it's not huge, but we were just making small payments every month, $1,761. And with the rate increases and things, we've been able to, increase our cash balance. This is the type of project now that we could pay for. In 2014, we could not. So I think that's amends to, kudos to the council for making those changes so we can do this. We have the cash to do this if the council is amenable.
Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate you saying that, we have the opportunity now to pay off loans and stop paying interest that we didn't have
Yeah.
only just a few years ago. Council, does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, I see the funding sources, water and sewer, GFA, interest, and fund balance. What's the difference? How much each?
So we had budgeted $100,000 in the 2020 budget, thinking that one of the new GFA loans would be in place for some of our large projects. That hasn't happened. The budget you just approved for 2021, I think it was $3.5 million in GFA projects. So we've budgeted GFA interest for 2021 again, but in 2020 it was not applicable. So there's some budget there already that was for a GFA interest that did not happen. It doesn't cover the full amount, so the remainder would have to come out of fund balance in the water and sewer fund.
How much is the remainder?
Well, I'm trying to remember, y'all, I've already brought you one budget amendment to use some of that money. I want to say $49,000 is left, so the remaining $52,000 would come out of fund balance in the water and sewer fund.
Okay.
I imagine that even making small monthly transactions has a cost. Somebody has to monitor that, has to prompt the transaction, so we would eliminate those costs too.
Yes.
You're probably looking at the person who does it.
Please do this.
Okay. So, all right, any other questions? Those are good questions, actually. But it's the right thing to do either way. If not, I will entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion to approve the payoff of the GFA note number DW09011 in the amount of $101,268.07.
Second.
I have a motion and I have a second to pay off this GFA loan. I'll call the question, or let me ask for any discussion. Probably not, but, all right, I'll call the question. All in favor? That's unanimous. All right, very
Thank you.
good. You got both of the things you wanted tonight. And I want to say, I read off that calendar earlier about this process and how involved it was. But the person who does the vast majority of this work was just standing at that lectern, and we all should say thank you to her for all the work that she does, because this process is not easy. And she does drag Tom into it a little bit, but he doesn't work very hard down there.
He goes kicking and screaming into it.
And she drags me in, and halftime I'm asleep, but we work on it. And all of these members here have sat through hours and hours, probably at least 2 days were 5 hours alone by themselves each. And it's a hefty process, and I think it can be easily maybe underappreciated, and nobody's asking for anything, but I just want the public to know that a lot of work goes into this. And like I said, it's a 12-month budget. We spend 4 months building this thing. So
And
Sarah,
that
hats off.
doesn't count the time at the kitchen table going through hundreds of pages of accounts.
Well, I appreciate that. I was gonna let Leslie tell that story, but,
Or in the car or while
'cause
going down the
every time I'm
highway
talking to
or-
her, she tells me a story like that. She's on a treadmill or a bike, I think it is, and asking me about, 6 or 7 different things. Okay, well, that wraps up the end of the agenda. Let me get to a couple of points that I need to make tonight. First, I want to say thank you to everyone who has gone out and done their part to participate in the census. I am proud to report that Villa Rica, as of today, has a 68.4% response rate, self-response rate. And while that is a failing grade, it is well beyond the state by some 8 points. It's 6 points ahead of both Carroll and Douglas County, and it is by far better than any city around us. So we did a good job here, and a lot of it's to staff and the work that they did. We've had our crews go out and put signs up and banners all through the city, and we, as a group, have encouraged people to participate in the census, and I want to say thank you to everybody for doing that. The
Mayor?
chief, yes, ma'am.
Oh, we still have time, right? Didn't they move the deadline again?
So there was a
Maybe we'll
October
get-
31st, and then there was a 5th. What I say is, please go today. We know it's going to be good. It may be till October 31st, but I can't say for sure because a federal judge said it would be October 31st, but somebody else in the department said nope. Anyway, good point, but people need to go out right away and get it done. And I can't emphasize enough how important the census is. It's not just a matter of us knowing how many people live here. It's how money is appropriated at all levels of government. And what affects us mostly is how we are allocated within the counties in terms of our SPLOST and our lost revenues. So it's very important that we get accurately counted. And the way to do that best is when you go out there and self-report. All right, the chief has asked me to remind everyone about the October 3rd Get Invested concert that'll be held at the Mill Amphitheater. This program is a partnership with Styx here in Villa Rica and the Velcro Pygmies and the city of Villa Rica to raise money for the Villa Rica Police Department to get vests. The tickets are $10, and you can get them at eventbrite.com, and I want to encourage everybody who can to go out there and do that. And please join us in helping to raise money for the police department to get these vests. The protocols for the social distancing and the face coverings will apply there.
Mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
If you don't mind, only because I got this feedback from citizens, I just want to be clear. We provide bulletproof vests for our officers, because they were going like, why do they need vests? Why? These vests are, would tactical be the right term? Heavy duty, it's like armor, I think of like a flak jacket that you wear on the outside, and it's more for active shooter, rifles, heavier firearm ammo that would pierce what we supply on a regular daily basis. And so they're very expensive, they're also extremely heavy. And so I had run that confusion with a number of people, so I just wanted to clarify, that's the difference between, they're like, what, do you not supply this for your officers? And I needed to clarify that with some people.
All right, Chief, come on up. I asked him to do this earlier, and he kind of shrunk back, but I guess now he feels like he needs to. And I appreciate it, frankly. Okay, good.
But I was gonna answer what, Mr. Pearson said, she was exactly right in that they are for the heavier arm, the rifles or something like that.
Is that microphone on?
It's showing blue. But, okay, I got, or showing yellows.
Now
Okay.
repeat that, please.
All right. All right, so, I want to agree with Ms. McPherson again, that, she is right, that it is for the rifle rounds, that our regular vests don't stop, and these are, ballistic vests. These vests will stop hopefully that round, and they, like she said, they're very heavy. At the Get Invested, we will have one of the vests there for people to try on and to hold and feel how heavy it is. It's not something you're going to wear for very long, but God forbid we have a active shooter, we'll be able to use it. Okay? Can I speak about the National Faith and Blue Weekend invitation, sir?
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Okay. Movement Forward Incorporated and Department of Justice Office of Community Oriented Policing, basically COPS. National Faith and Blue Weekend invitation happens Friday, October 9th between 12:30 and 2 p.m. At the Mill Amphitheater, 106 Temple Street. The Villa Rica Police Department is participating in the National Faith and Blue Weekend on October 9th, 2020. The stated goal of the event is to facilitate safer, stronger, and more unified communities by directly facilitating collaborations between law enforcement officers and local residents through houses of worship. We would like to invite leadership representatives from your congregation to join us on Friday, October 9th, anytime between 12:30 and 2 at the Mill Amphitheater, located downtown next to the police department. We will have light refreshments, fellowship, and an overall good time. In addition to the refreshments and fellowship, we will have a time of prayer led by our chaplain, Detective Blake Terry, at 1 o'clock. We hope to see you soon. We're asking, we are going to deliver letters to every church in the city, asking that they come and participate. And basically, this is a way for us to get closer to our community and help bridge some of those gaps that we've had with all the things going on nationally.
Well, I appreciate that.
It's called the National Faith and Blue Weekend invitation, and it was started through the Department of Justice, and so it's nationally done. So
Will that be on your Facebook page?
yes, sir. That's all
right.
for me, sir.
Is that it, Chief? All
Chief.
right, well, thank you.
Chief, one more thing.
All right.
Back to Get Invested, if a citizen resident wanted to make a donation directly to the police department for that, is that possible?
Yes, sir. We have a fund set up with Sarah to where they can put it directly into that fund, and they can just come see us, and we'll take care of it for them.
Maybe
you.
just as a suggestion, you could on your Facebook page where you talk about this concert, say that if you can't make the concert and you'd like to make a contribution, give instructions on how to do that. That's a good idea.
Yes, sir.
Councilman.
Thank you.
And I did want to just say for a minute, I've had an opportunity with the chief to, I tried to pick up that vest, but it was pretty heavy. I mean, I picked it up, but it was heavy. So he handed me one, and I held it with my hand like this. He handed me the other, and I had to hold on to it with two hands. They're quite heavy, and I assure you won't be wearing them for long. They probably weigh over 30 pounds. Is that right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Chief. All right. I've got one more announcement here, but I want to see if any council members or staff have any questions. We want to recognize our commissioner for Carroll County, Mr. Clint Chance, who is in the audience. I don't always recognize everybody. All right. Mr. Barber. Hi.
I have two things.
Go ahead.
We also have in the audience tonight Tracy Ivy, who's our new recreation director. Tracy, stand up. Let everybody see you.
Can I say a few words?
Yep.
Good evening.
Good evening.
You turn it off, Chief? There it is.
There it is.
First of all, I want to say, I want to just let you guys know how welcoming your staff has been for me. It's been a wonderful transition. This is my 5th day, and it's been fun. It's been, I've had a lot of information thrown at me, and I'm compartmentalizing it all, and I finally have my headache at a place where I can control it and handle it. A lot of information, but I have driven through Villa Rica for the last, I moved out here in 1998. And I have driven through Villa Rica back and forth for 32 years to Douglasville, from either college or from living out here in the West Georgia area. And there's just something about Villa Rica that has always tugged me. And I feel very blessed and honored to be the new recreation director. We're going to grow this program. We're going to get everything back on track after COVID. you've got a great staff, and I look forward to serving you guys and the citizens as well. So,
Well, let me just say, welcome aboard. We appreciate having you
you.
here, and I appreciate those kind words. And I'm sure all of these council members will get a chance to come out and see you sometime soon. And I apologize, I haven't been out there yet, but I knew you had a lot of work to do
Oh,
over
yeah.
there. But we want to welcome you here, and we appreciate you being here.
thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Barber, you got anything else?
I've been thinking about the process that we went through for this year's budget, and one thing that we didn't focus on a whole lot because of the way we did it was what's not in here. And there's some really significant things not in this budget that are looming. And not all of them are negative, but they're challenging. One thing that's not in here is there's no CARES Act revenue in here for next year, so we're not anticipating that again. I know that you are aware that we only budgeted $500,000 for Butterballs, which we don't think will completely do that project. So that's going to be another year's worth of funding. There's no money in here to build another gymnasium. And this is our last year with Villarica Elementary Gym. So they're going to demo, school system's going to demo that building after this season and do a classroom expansion on that site. So we're either going to really downsize our basketball program or we're going to find funding for a gym. There's no money in here for Connors Road Park. If you remember, we put that in Douglas Splosh, and it's in the 2022 part of that program. There has been conversation almost since I've been here about hiring an assistant city manager, and there's no money in here for that. There are no additional police officers in this budget, and as we grow as a city, that's the thing, you know, so we're skipping a year, but that's coming. The way that we brought the budget and the way that you passed it were almost the same when it came to personnel and capital. There are very few personnel additions or changes in this, and relatively little capital beyond our annual police cruiser program where we're, you know, doing 5 or 6 a year. So we didn't really have major equipment in this one. What we did do was we made a huge list of maintenance projects which totaled maybe $800,000 or something, and that was with us doing a whole lot of the work in the winter. And I think we funded about half of that, so that's coming back. You're going to see that, you know, in another year. Nothing like a new city hall, which is probably going to be some kind of long-term funded program. So we're going to stay where we are. We're full. Like, I mean, that building is full still, even though we've renovated a little bit and that helped us and it looks nicer. There is no money in here to rebuild Punkintown Road. The only thing that we budgeted is the design work. There's no additional funding for code enforcement, and that is coming. There are 2.5 people in the budget, and one of them spends most of their time on soil and erosion control. That's coming. We're going to, you know, as we get bigger and that demand grows, we're going to have to add more people there. We still are in a very competitive environment for police officers, both to acquire them and to retain them. Not only is that economic, but it's, you know, cultural or whatever. It's not as cool to be a police officer as it used to be since Ferguson and that now with all the things that have happened in 2020. On top of the economic part, I think that we did a really good job with the pay scale implementation of making us more competitive, but that's a difficult hire and retention right now. We are also just, I don't want to say failing, but we're really scuffling to fill our utility positions. We lost our sewer plant manager in December, and we have not come close to filling that position in 9 months. We have been trying to hire a deputy utility director, I think, for more than a year, and have offered to people that we liked and had them turn us down after they accepted the offer and all kind of stuff. Those are just really difficult. And to give you an example of how acute that is, I spoke with a guy yesterday that works for a neighboring city in the sewer plant in that city, and his salary is almost 6 figures. So think about that. Our plant manager was making in the low 60s. So when we're not hiring somebody after 9 months, and you hear that, even if that guy's not the norm, that market is just terribly competitive. So that's going to come back and get us. I mean, we're going to have to do something. And I don't want to go back the route of contracting, right? We tried that in 12 and 13 or 13 and 14. So that one's coming back. We did not change our self-funded plan significantly this time, although we may make some provider changes within, how it gets done, just like we've done every year. The benefits are pretty stable for what we're doing. And if you think about that in the context of the pay scale implementation and everything else we're doing, we have adopted a philosophy, and I don't think we've ever said it out loud, but our philosophy has been fewer people that are well paid with good benefits as opposed to more people who are paid less with cheaper benefits, which means that we have a reason to expect our folks to produce, because we've decided as a group, staff and council, that that's going to be our philosophy. So we're doing competitive pay and really, really rich benefits. And we don't talk about this a lot either, but it's not normal for cities to maintain a defined benefit pension today. We are rare, okay? Because a defined benefit means that we are obligating ourselves on what they're going to get, regardless of the market, regardless of the economy, regardless of how long they live. Not every city does that anymore. In addition, we offer another retirement vehicle that's voluntary, and we match up to 3% of salary on top of a rare defined benefit plan. So when I say that our benefits are rich, I'm not just talking about the fact that we got self-funded. It's significant. So as we continue with that, hiring people is a big deal, because one person out of 150 is different than one person out of 200 in a group that's paid less, but where you have more bodies. So I'm not proposing that we change that, but just as we go forward, we need to be keeping that in the back of our mind, that that's what we're doing. Well, there's no money in here for land acquisition, and I think that's a mistake. It's regrettable, because this is the time, with all the plans we have on the table, to take advantage of our knowledge of where we're headed, and to acquire land in areas where we know we're going to grow. And then last of all, I wanted to tell you about Thursday night. So Thursday night we had a train wreck, right? I've had the opportunity to clean up after a tornado, but I've never cleaned up after a train wreck. Around here, it's just like sort of ho-hum. It's like, oh yeah, well, I did the one with the ice cream, and so like everybody here except me's had experience cleaning up train wrecks. So I've always joked that I go to cities that are train wrecks and clean them up, but I've never done a literal train wreck. But our guys were great. Mark Hanna in particular was running the grapple truck. He was awesome. He was just awesome. That wreck occurred at 4:30 in the afternoon. By 7 o'clock, we had the track cleared and the train was gone. 3 of our guys wound up staying until 12:30 in the morning. And the last thing that happened was the trailer had been pulled off of the nose of the engine and dumped onto the side of the track, and it had to be cut up and loaded, into roll-offs. So that was accomplished at 12:30. So that was an 8-hour cleanup for those 3 guys. But we pulled in our entire grounds crew and street crew at 4:30. They had gotten off work at 4, so they were all just getting home when we pulled them all back in, right? And one group worked on one side of the train and one group worked on the other. So if you see those guys, they did extra work that night, right? No fussing, got along great. We were working with guys we'd never met before. There was a towing company there. We had the Norfolk Southern guys response team who we'd never met. Everybody worked great. Police, they had all kind of traffic stuff going on. The fire department was out there because of the diesel fuel that spilled. You should be proud of those guys. That was a really good group effort. The chief, the chief and his guys, they ho-hum the whole thing too, because that kind of stuff's, just like what they do every day. But for me to stand out there in the rain, watching everybody, it was cool to see everybody work together the way they did. It's no drama, and got it done. And I think a 2.5-hour turn on the train sounds pretty good to me. I don't know what to compare it to because I've never done one, but all right. And then while it went on, a truck got stuck on the Jones crossing. Did you hear that? No. Yeah. So another truck got stuck on Jones, and the Amtrak Amtrak train was coming, and somehow or another we got it to slow down or stop or got the guy off or something. But anyway, that would have been really, insult to injury if we'd have crashed 2 in one night. But anyway, so if you get to see grounds crew, street department, give them your thanks. They did a good job.
Can I ask one question?
Go ahead.
You said you think it was a mistake that we did not, purchase some land, buildings, whatever, things we can use. But that was never brought forward. Is it the money wasn't there? You didn't
No.
think we could reallocate it from something else?
We're not there yet, but we need to get there. A lot of that stuff we just talked about, we got to get there. We're just not there yet. We're growing, but we're not there yet.
So, and I do appreciate you ending on a positive note, and I did want to say thank you to all those guys who worked out there cleaning that up, and I did my part. I went out there and I saw it, and then I got out of the way, and I thought that was the right thing to do, and I did do that. But too, every time I let you speak, uninterrupted, I get a number of calls and comments from people who say, "Oh my goodness, when I listen to him talk, it's just humbling where we are and just how much we have left to do." And you didn't fail me with doing that again tonight. I would just say that, how we handle the benefits package is something that is a strategy. It's something we've worked for. We've wanted people to want to work here, to be committed to being here. We wanted this to be a place where people said, I want to go there and work. And that's part of that long-term strategy. You're right, a number of things didn't make it into the budget. And frankly, Ms. McPherson just asked the question, and the question is answered correctly. There is no money to do those things. But a lot of the decisions we have made over the past 3 and 4 years have been difficult. They've been difficult for all of us. We are all not only elected officials, we are taxpayers here as well. We live in this community. And we are making progress. We are moving in the right direction. We were able to pay off a loan early tonight. That's something that no council has probably considered in I don't know how long. So while all of that stuff is true and humbling, and we have a lot of work to do, and I appreciate you saying it for the public so that people know that it's out there, just keep in mind that we are still moving forward. We are making good, long-term decisions and investments in this city. Mr. Avery, do you have anything you'd like to add? You ladies, does anybody on the council want to say anything before I close?
Yeah, I got one question. You said we've been operating almost a year without a plant manager. How are we operating? I mean, how are we
Carefully.
getting by with that?
So Pete's a class one. He's, the de facto lead out there. But, I mean, we've got good guys out there. They're just they're not class one certified, so they can't, fill that position. So we're just taking care of it with the guys we got. And if you remember, we lost 5 people in that plant in December and January. So we've turned that group over, and, we're just keeping it running is basically what we're doing.
Does that answer your question, Mr. Carter?
Yeah.
Okay, anybody else? All right, seeing none. Let me close with this, and yes, it's a prepared statement, so it could be a little boring and a little long. But I wanted to get it right. On July the 9th, 2020, I announced an order requiring face masks to be worn by city staff and all persons entering upon and into city-owned property. At the time of that order, the state of Georgia had 97,000 positive cases of COVID-19 and had experienced 2,870 deaths due to the virus. Since that time, the number of positive cases has more than tripled to 315,000, and the number of deaths have more than doubled to 6,971. The CDC and the overwhelming medical community continue to insist that wearing face coverings is the best preventative measure that can be taken, and they urge that face covering policies remain in place. The conditions which warranted the original order have not abated. In fact, they have worsened. Therefore, today, I will extend the face covering order for an additional 60 days from October 1 through November 30. For additional information, you may see the order, which will be posted tomorrow by the city clerk on the city website once she signs it. With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. I have a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second? Have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor? We are adjourned. I saw it, but I didn't know what